Mhm.
Welcome to Shareholders of a Better World, brought to you by TBLI Group. At TBLI Group, we have an established reputation as an organization dedicated to building the ecosystem of global sustainability and impact investing. We're doing this through educating, advising, and facilitating transactions in global sustainability and impact business, as well as capital solutions for private companies, family offices, and fund groups. For nearly 25 years, TBLI Group has created a vertically integrated ecosystem of education to action through TBLI conferences and TBLI consulting. More about our company can be found at tbligroup.com. This webinar is brought to you by TBLI Foundation, which hosts educational learning experiences dedicated to a better planet. Through the foundation, we build sustainable communities by sharing the people and the experiences making a difference to so many of our lives around the world. Our weekly podcasts bring impact thought leaders that are doing and not only chatting. Now let me introduce my guest today.
Welcome to our studio in Amsterdam. Welcome to all of our friends around the world who are joining us. Thank you very much for taking the time. We're really honored and privileged to have Tsitsi Matundi. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Just some technical information. If you have a question that you would like to pose, just type it in the chat in the lower right-hand corner. If you move your mouse over the name of the person in the list, a window will pop up and you can send private messages to them. You can do that also after, during, and before the event on your phone or your desktop. So let's dive right in here. Tsitsi Matundi is the co-founder of the African Family Office Association, a publisher, a mother. I hope your daughter's feeling better. An educator, and a family business owner. And for those of you who are not familiar with her, I would prefer that she introduces herself so we don't forget anything, and she'll give a brief explanation of where does she think impact investing is going in the family office space, the family business in Africa. And if you have questions, just post it in the lower right-hand corner. Tsitsi, welcome.
Thank you so much, Robert, for having me on your platform. I'm so honored to be here. So my name is Tsitsi Matundi, and I am firstly a family business owner myself. So I have two family businesses that have been running for almost 15 years combined now, a publishing company as well as a Montessori primary school. I got into family business advising almost 4 years ago now, and I work with families around the areas of governance. I work with family businesses as well as family offices, and I also help have conversations around relevancy in family offices, as well as looking at what is it really that we want to achieve as a family going into generational legacies and generational wealth. One of the most important things that I do is also I co-founded African Family Firms, which is arguably the biggest African family business association on the continent. And the focus of African Family Firms is to start stimulating conversations around building generational legacies and generational wealth. So I split my time between working with African family firms as well as Naka Legacy, which is my family governance consultancy, and I work with family businesses and family offices across the continent and off-continent, having pertinent discussions around what is having a family business, what is building family wealth, and what is building resonancy within the family towards building generational legacy. So when I look at family businesses on the continent right now, and I look at impact investments and where the future is going, I've had interesting conversations with my colleagues across the board from different organizations that work with family offices, as well with those in family offices, as well as my partner, who co-founded AFF with me. And a lot of the pertinent issues that came up, and I think I've discussed this with Robert before, is that Africa is a very interesting continent. We are behind in a lot of things, especially looking at ourselves as family businesses and family offices. We do have family offices on the continent, but a lot of them are housed offshore, and they are housed in multiple family offices in different jurisdictions. You have family businesses that have substantial wealth on the continent and who are looking at establishing more family offices on the continent and looking for guidance on what is the best practice and what really generational legacy looks like and what it will be. And so a lot of conversations I have around governance also then turn to philanthropy, which I think then goes hand in hand with ESG and investing and looking at what the family wants to do going into the future. What are their visions? What are their values? And how does that tie in the investments that they want to make? So going back a little bit and looking at the history of Africa and the history of investments on Africa, and particularly you have that diversity on the continent where you have different family businesses. You have the ethnic family businesses, which are the African families that have grown wealth post-colonialism, during colonialism, going into post-colonialism, and they've built quite big organizations that have become corporates, and they've joined the international world as the nouveau riche, the people who've just got new money and who are deciding what to do with this money and how to invest it right. And some of the issues that have impacted family businesses, especially in this target group, is the fact that coming from a history where land was such a big issue, when they get money, they want to convert it into property. They want to convert it into buying real estate. Their first thought when they think of investment is, how can I put my money into real estate? And you see that there's a lot of buy-up of real estate on continent and off continent. The next thing that they think of is keeping it in cash, because as we may all know, Africa is still going through that bumpy growth road where you have spaces and areas in Africa which are not as developed as most developed worlds, and you have a lot of issues with government. You have a lot of issues with civil unrest. You have a lot of issues with everything in between because they're finding their feet. So if you run a business in areas such as that, you'd prefer to keep your money in cash. You prefer to have that liquidity because you don't know what's going to happen next. And you find a lot of these particular family businesses, when they amass their wealth, they're sending their children off continent to get an education, hoping that they give them better opportunities, and then bringing them back onto the continent to start working in the family businesses, which makes sense. And in that group also, you have different stages of development for the different family businesses. You have those who have created enormous corporates and who have got massive amounts of money and who have set up family offices, which are private family offices, as much as set up family offices off the continent. But you also have within that group that technicality of they have advisors that are all over the globe, and they're looking to diversify, and they're more easier to have conversations around ESG with on a global level because they understand it, and they have invested in their home country. They've got the ability, they've got the money to be able to invest widely. But then you have those that come not the ultra high net worth, but then just the high net worth individuals. They're growing and coming into their own. They're setting up an understanding of family office and growing those family offices. And their investment thought process has always been about giving back to the communities that they're in. So you'll find that a lot of the projects that they invest in are local based. They will look at investments that will create jobs locally, increase skills locally, and also create some sort of impact locally. So it will be the construction of roads, it will be the construction of manufacturing factories. It will be anything that increases value locally, and they would be willing to listen to investments that lie within that space because they also want that hands-on. They've come from a space where it's been highly volatile. They want to be hands-on. They want to see where their money is. They're not willing to say, okay, I can throw a couple of million there, and then I'll get the returns over a couple of years. They're sitting there thinking, okay, where's my money? I actually want to see where my money is and what's it doing. And they also want to have that. It's very driven by, they want to see the name of their families and the value systems and the vision that the family has being translated on the local market. They want to see people seeing them actively investing in the betterment of the local market. You then have also the other branch of African family businesses, which are the Indian families, the Lebanese families, the Chinese families, the European families who have naturalized and are Africans because they've probably been here for centuries, or they have come in and they have adopted Africa as their home, and they've managed to build businesses that make quite a lot of money, and they now are setting up family offices. The majority of those families have family offices that are off continent. They have family offices that are managed off continent, and they look at impact investments, not necessarily just focused on continent, but focused globally. And they are, depending on their appetite for risk and their appetite for investment and alignment with their vision and values, they are more willing to listen to global impact investments, and they're more willing to look at global impact investments more than local impact investments, because they may not have that depth of attachment to the localities that they have, whereas in the African family businesses that are here, these are their homes, these are the communities, they've been here for as long as they know. They want to see how they can give back to the space they're in. And so engaging family businesses on the continent when it comes to investment is understanding the family that you're working with. It's understanding their appetite for risk. It's understanding the amount of funds they've set aside for this. Because philanthropy on itself on the continent is very different from philanthropy as well in the West. When you look at philanthropy on the continent, family businesses from the get-go are engaged in it. It might not be formalized, but they're already doing it. Same with ESG investment. They are already engaging it, but it might not be formalized, and it might not be on the scale that their developed world counterparts are really investing in. So it's understanding who the family is, what they're interested in, and how much they're willing to put into it. You find there are some family offices that are focused on things that are tech related. There are some family offices that are interested in things that are ESG on different various levels, but then they're also very, very particular in that it doesn't rub up their local governments and local authorities the wrong way, because that in itself can impact the family as well as their business on the long term. I think you're on mute, Robert.
You have an association for family offices and businesses, but I would imagine that Africa is quite early in the development of mature family office groups. There's a lot of wealth being created in Africa, for sure. Are these family offices basically going offshore and just setting up in Switzerland or Luxembourg or Singapore, or are they actually, is there a maturity to the development of family offices? I mean, you have an association, so I imagine there's something going on over there. Could you give us some insight in where is it now, and where do you think it will be in 3 to 4 years?
So I think the conversation around family office is something that mostly started with the ultra high net worth individuals. When the world started opening up more and more, you're looking at the 80s, 90s, and there was that ability to travel, and early 2000s, and being exposed to other markets. And I think we all know the firm favorite for African in investment or keeping of cash has been Switzerland as a jurisdiction. But there are other hubs that like Dubai and so forth that Africans started engaging in. And it all started when you got individuals or organizations who saw the opportunity that is in Africa and came onto the continent and started having conversations with African family business owners around setting up family offices offshore. So most of the family offices you find on the continent, even the concept itself, the term family office, not a lot of them are pure family offices. You have those who are just a family enterprise that has got multiple businesses and that is looking towards, okay, I want to set up a family office. What does it look like? And they're still exploring the concept. And that's where we come in as an organization to really educate them and help them understand what it is to set up a family office, what is the purpose of a family office, and what they should be looking at achieving when they set up a family office. A lot of them that do have family offices are part of multiple family offices that are off continent in jurisdictions that I noted, Dubai being one of the biggest, as well as Singapore, as well as Switzerland. So they will join family offices that have been set up there by financial institutions and then use the services from that angle. And there's no real commitment on their part to set up the family office and have it focused on their needs. But then it's more of a vehicle that they've seen is growing in popularity and they think it may add value to them and they've been sold on it. You get a lot of people who come on the continent and they have all these events and they are trying to have conversations with these families of wealth about set up a family office or join our multiple family office. And so you find now the conversation is turning slowly as the market matures, as well as the growth and the maturity of Africa is happening, where families are now wanting to be more private. They're wanting to actually see what are the benefits of setting up their single family offices, or what are the benefits of working with multiple family offices on the continent or from providers on the continent. And you also have the big banks who are setting up divisions or departments focused towards the private wealth and also then setting up this multiple family office structure.
Not all of, obviously, Africa is a massive continent, and not all countries are the same in their development and their interest, and some are a bit more stable. I remember my wife, when she first went to Zimbabwe, she said, "We have to move to Zimbabwe." This was quite a while ago when the worst of Mugabe had not taken hold yet. So it was still, she loved it. She said, "It's great," and okay, things went a bit pear-shaped. So aren't families saying, "Listen, why are you bothering me with impact investment," which I consider a luxury, because for me at the moment, it's about survival and building up the country after, all kinds of civil war unrest. How do you address that particular issue? Because I'm sure it's come up.
Absolutely. Those issues do come up because when you're looking at most people who come with investments for African families, they're looking at offshore investments, and their thought process is obviously African countries, because of the instability, the family offices and family businesses will want to invest offshore, which is true to a certain extent. They will invest offshore, but there's specificalities of what they will invest in and what their comfort levels are. And that's something that most people who come to family offices or family businesses on the continent need to recognize. When it comes to developing in their own home countries, they are willing to look at projects. They are willing to look at investments that they feel are aligned with their values and their vision, and also the goals of the family and the business itself. It's not always easy on the continent, and I think some of the feedback that we've gotten is that you might want to do good and you might want to get involved in an investment that looks really good. It looks like an ESG and it looks like something that's going to help the country. And you feel like, okay, I'm going to be giving back. And as my family, I feel like this is going to be worthwhile. But because you have a lot of, what can I say? You have a lot of political unrest and instability in some countries. Some of these projects become less ESG, more politicized, and no matter how good the opportunity is for the family investor, they then feel like, okay, I don't want to get involved in this because it's not aligning. And so then they end up having cash and they're sitting on it and they're thinking, where can I invest it? So they then tend to invest in smaller projects. And in these smaller projects, they want to know who they're getting in bed with, basically, because they've been bid before. And I think a lot of people who provide services for African family businesses can testify to the fact that it's not easy terrain to do business in Africa. It can be very rocky terrain. And no matter how good you want to do in terms of investing in impact projects in your own country, you may not always succeed. So sometimes they're not looking for the big investments, and which is probably one of the advantages of working with African family offices. They're not looking for the big money investments. They're looking for something that is small, that they see is impactful, and that they see that can add value.
Do you find it challenging? I know that you're very passionate about purpose-driven investment, and your partner also. Do you find that the majority of family office that you speak to are open to that idea as long as the investment is in Africa, or is it they're more open to the idea that it's offshore at scale?
That then depends on the size of the family and the size of the money they have for investing, and also it depends on. I think the first thing that they will think of is that, how can I invest at home? How can I invest where I can see my money, or I can see where my money is going, and I can see what is being done? So completely different from the developed world, where you have all these checks and balances. Africa doesn't really always operate with checks and balances. We do try as much as possible, but then sometimes you get a lot of gray areas. And so because you've operated in a situation such as that for a very long time and built your business around that, you are thinking, I want to know where my money is going and if it's being used for the right thing and what that is going to look like. So there is that need or want, especially for first-time investors or early investors or people who are still young in the game, to actually want to local investments that they can see and they can participate in, not just throwing money at and hoping that the best is being done, and they want to actually be a part of it. There's that essence of, I want to be part of the building. I want to be part of the change that is happening. And I think that's one of the things that is very important to add to African investors.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. Okay, so if you had a great social impact project in Zimbabwe or somewhere else, if you had to make a list, I'm not asking you for the names, to make a list of where you should focus your time. Is it Black African family offices? Is it Chinese family offices? Is it Indian family offices? Is it European family offices? Who would be the most open to as an investor?
I think Black family offices. The thing is, they're overlooked by a lot of people. That's one thing I've seen. There's that overlooking and seeing, is there the capability to invest, and how much are they willing to or capable of investing? One of the things I've learned is that the money is there. They have the money, but it's the trust building. It's very much about, do they trust you? Do they like you? Do they align with their values? And I think similar, we've seen, like even in the Asian markets, it's that, let's sit down and break bread. Let me know who you are before I put my money where you are. Let me understand what it is that you're trying to do. And a lot of these family offices on the continent, people need to be aware, are not like the fourth, fifth generations that we're seeing globally. They're first generation family offices. They're still very much, some of them still in the founder or the second gen. They are still very young compared to the global counterparts. And because of that, they're trying to find their feet. They're trying to align themselves and see what it is that they actually want and what it is that they're actually interested in. And it makes sense for them to want to align with things that are closer to home, things that they feel like, okay, if I make this investment, this is the change I'm going to see. And I can monitor this change and see it in the long term. And I can share with my family members. I can share with my community. It becomes something we can celebrate. So Africa, as we all know, there is a lot of attachment to community. There's a lot of attachment to spaces. I think if you look at a lot of founders, we have and I'm not quite sure how much you're familiar with Africa, but then you find even like when the late great Nelson Mandela died, they took him home to his village, home to his land, where his family belonged to. So there is that attachment in Africa to home, to where I grew up, to where my people are. And so as much as the investment overseas in other jurisdiction is there, it's more as it's an investment to preserve money or to keep the money in a way that at a later date, if I need it, I can withdraw from it and I can use it. But when it comes to things that really matter to them, and I think when it comes to philanthropy and ESG, you have to really look at the fact that people will only invest in those things that really matter to them. And so if you have that great attachment to, I want to see good happening in the village I came from. I want to add more jobs. I want to see, there will be that alignment. We're wanting to invest in the area that they know of. And there won't be that much excitement of I'm investing in the transport system or the prison system in another country. It doesn't mean anything to them. They will want something that means something to them. And I think at the end of the day, that's what makes even ESG investing in itself impactful. The fact that it's attached to people's feelings. It's also attached to people's values. And in the end, when you bring those two together, it makes it go further. And we then provide more, not only for the investor themselves, but for the communities that they're investing in.
So when you're saying it, what does it, an investment that means something to them? Let's kind of dig a bit deeper into that. Is philanthropy at the top of the pyramid as long as it's philanthropy within their community, or is it private equity, or is it social impact, or is it listed equity, or fixed income, or real estate? What is important? I know it's hard to generalize. It depends, but let's talk about the country where you might have the largest number of family offices, where you're the most engaged with, whether it's Zimbabwe or Nigeria or Ghana.
Mm-hmm. Can you just repeat that question for me again?
So you said that it has to have meaning to them. Mm-hmm. So what would have meaning to them? If we made a pyramid, would philanthropy be the most important that has meaning to them as long as it's philanthropy local? Is it about startup companies? Is it about growth financing? Is it about private equity? Is it about venture? Is it about listed equity, fixed income?
Private equity, definitely, as well as venture, something that has already started and that they see the growth of it, and they're just adding value to it. So those are probably right at the top. Philanthropy is something that family businesses already engage in. I think if I were to, it's not on a massive scale. Obviously, when people are thinking of philanthropy, they're thinking of billionaires giving away money. But when you think of African family businesses, with the number of businesses on the continent and the amount of money that they are given, I wouldn't be surprised if they have matched what billionaires have given. But it's just not, because it's not a lump sum. It is not spoken about. I'm thinking, I grew up in a family business. We grew up surrounded by family businesses. Philanthropy is not a matter of when, or it's a matter of we are already doing it. It's a matter of how many children are we sending to school that are not our children, that come from the communities that we serve. How many children are we Are we dealing with that? We are donating, or how many families are we feeding? How many orphanages are we invested in? All these things are started by families. All these things are started by family businesses. We're already doing that. We're already participating. If you see during the Christmas time, the number of food drives, the number of gifts that are given out to different communities at different points in time, these are things that are already being done by family businesses at large scale. If I think just during this December, coming from COVID, with all the hardships that were hitting family businesses, I think millions of dollars went into making Christmas better for other people. It's something that we do. It's all about Ubuntu. It's all about community. It's all about making sure that our neighbor has got something, even if I don't have. So philanthropy is already there. And now if you partner up that philanthropy with something that can generate funds for them, and they feel like, okay, I can do this and also create value for people, it's a no-brainer. They would be willing to put money in that. I think anyone would be willing to put money in that because you're already doing it. Now you're saying, okay, I can partner up and make a greater difference and then make it sustainable. Because I think when we look at conversations that have been had, like with individuals like Dambisa Moyo around Dead Aid, where people feel like we're just throwing money at Africa and it's not going anywhere. When you have local investors, when they're putting money in it, they're making sure it's going somewhere. They understand who it is they're giving to. They understand what impact that they're doing. And so it's easier to go in with partners like that. It's easier for them to want to say, if you've got road projects going, I know how bad the roads are around my community. If it can provide jobs for those, if it can provide some sort of income, some sort of sustainability, why not? Why would I not be wanting to put my money in there? And outside having invested in real estate, there's only so much real estate you can invest in before you feel like, okay, I've put my money in safekeeping here. I've put it in Swiss bank accounts. I've done everything. My children have gone to school. Now, how can I give back to my community? And then you have the children, the next gens who are coming back, who've been exposed to all these conversations, who've been exposed to the world in general, who grew up with this wealth and want to see this wealth add value to their communities.
Going a little bit further in what you said about private equity, that they're risk takers. They're willing to take a risk.
Yes.
What industries, if we look at the impact space, is a kind of priority? Is it energy? Is it healthcare? Is it transportation? Is it education? Is it IT, retail? Because I realize that not all countries are as equally developed in various sectors.
Transport, education, and I think the first one you said, transport, education, and
Healthcare.
healthcare. Yes, transport, education, and healthcare. Energy is an upcoming space on the continent. It's an upcoming space because we are going to be in a point in time where we're going to have a lot more Africans than we have Africa. So because of that, energy is going to be essential. At the moment, the resources we have, be that mineral resources and natural and other natural resources, are being able to give us energy, are being able to provide it. But even then, you see the projects that are being done by people, individuals, high profile individuals like Akon and so forth. And then you have electricity shortages. That is driving that movement towards, we need to create more energy. How can we do it? And the conversations are increasing. Healthcare, obviously, with what's been happening with COVID, there is this huge gap in terms of, we need better healthcare. We need facilities, a sustainable healthcare system that needs to work. Unfortunately, I have to say this, but the government has failed in a lot of spaces, and private individuals have to come in and play it. So at any given point in time, I think, like Kevin is asking here, where will water fit into this? These are all discussions that have to happen on the continent, like food production. When it comes to soil, we need to increase food production. How can we engage the farmers that are there? How can we engage the modern farming method as well as the past farming methods? How can we create more access to water? What will that look like? How can we create more energy so that we don't have as many power cuts? Because we all know in Africa, it's an extreme sport when it comes to power cuts. And education, the educational systems on the continent are failing. I myself have a school because I see the failure of the education systems. And when you have such a big populace on the continent of so many children at a young age, you have, I think UN statistics have said 1 million Africans are turning 18 every day. Are those 1 million educated Africans? What is it going to look like a couple of years from now when your biggest workforce on the globe is on the continent? Education is very, very critical. And providing sustainable education that's going to be able to reach more people and give more value, and then create a workforce that is able, skilled and capable is key. And because there are not enough visible projects that these investors can see, they're not investing in them. But then if there was a lot more noise and there was a lot more offering in terms of this is what's available, will you be able to? I can handpick a couple of investors that are already lining up, would be like, I want to invest in education, I want to invest in healthcare. And even with my school as it is, as small as it is, we've had a lot of investors who come to the table and said, how can we have private equity in this? How can we get involved in this? And so that means there is an appetite, there is a need for it.
You meet a lot of family offices, potential family offices, family businesses. That's your world. And you're trying to push one, being a member, being a family office in Africa, obviously, and perhaps services. But you're at the same time, you're trying to convince them about purpose-driven investments. Mm-hmm. What do you find the most effective way in getting that message across? Because I would imagine for many, and the same in Europe and Asia, they all act like they're all experts. Everybody's an expert on blockchain, ESG, and impact investing. And they only started last week. So it's the flavor of the month. I get that. So how do you get their attention? How do you get their interest? Or are they saying to you, we've been looking a lot for impact investing. How come we can't find anything?
I think also terminology is everything. Not everybody is exposed to some of the education and some of the knowledge. So some people will invest in these projects and not even know it's ESG investing, and then bump into the term somewhere along the line of their journey. Working in family governance helps me have, what can I say, an helicopter view, or an aerial view of what's going on. Speaking to a lot of families, in governance, you are talking about how do we communicate with each other? Where are we coming from as a family and where are we going to? Which then brings us to philanthropy. What is important to us? What are our values and what is the vision? Believe it or not, it's not only an African problem. And I'm thinking Africa is vast, but it's not only in Africa, but it's across the globe. When you speak to family business advisors and a lot of people in the industry, some families, it takes them a moment to get to a point where they have a conversation about what are our values, what are our collective values, and what is our vision for the family. And when you start having those conversations is when you start having a conversation around, if we're thinking of philanthropy or giving, what does that look like for us? If we're thinking about building a legacy, what does that look like for us as individuals, as a family? And you find that when it comes to legacy building, a lot of what really is important for people is to have their family name remembered across time, even way after the individual is gone and as the family continues to grow. And they do that through investments. They do that through business choices. But more so now, they're looking at how do we give back in terms of philanthropy. And so when you partner up philanthropy with investing and it becomes ESG investment, you're starting to have those conversations around how can I not just only invest? How can I invest in a way that aligns with my philanthropic work? So instead of just sending a couple of children to school, what happens if I invest in a school that can educate a lot more children going into the future? And then even the children that I was already sponsoring to go to school get the value, but I'm investing in an educational facility, which is something that is not just going to fall apart in 24 hours unless a bomb hits or something. But you're looking at when you start having those conversations with them around governance and you're getting into the meaty part of what are their values and what is their vision, you start introducing the aspects of have you looked at investments such as these? Because of this is globally what is happening in this space. This is the impact that you can have by simply investing in this space. And the best way that you can do it is by engaging with such and such thought process and then really giving them the options available to them. Now, when there is no options available to them and all the options are coming from probably foreign investments, they're thinking, okay, this is good, but then how can I do it in my own community? And so they're also then given the burden of trying to create the ESG investments themselves. And that's, as we've seen, sometimes doesn't necessarily end up well. You are on mute again, yeah.
No, that I agree with you. I get a lot of family offices in Asia or Latin America, not so much in Africa. It's mainly that's not my network yet. And they all are jealous of all the Europeans. They embraced impact investing immediately. Immediately. You know, they all gave us a big hug when TBLI started 25 years ago. And I have to break their bubble and I say, no, it was really hard. I mean, they didn't believe in it at all. It was so bad. It was so bad. I remember I published the first European management magazine on sustainability in 95. And I would give a talk and I would give away copies of the magazine. Many were afraid to touch it because they thought they might get some illness, that it was confronting them with their purpose. And I remember speaking to a group of insurance companies about climate risk for the insurance industry. I said, a Dutch insurance industry. And I said, you're a country below sea level. Sea levels are going to rise. I would be concerned. Do you know what they said to me? It's not a problem for us if sea level rises. We don't cover saltwater damage. So you can get very upset at the stupidity of that. I said, yeah, but you give mortgages. So if 200,000 homes are underwater, you have a big loss. So the idea that Europe and North America were easy to convince, that's not the case at all. And it's still not the case. There are still many, many people who don't want to be confused with the facts. So personally, I found it's not really hard to get behavioral change. The hard part is access, which is what you have. People with a lot of money, a lot of more zeros, more isolated. So it's access that's the challenge. So how do you get access? Or are you a secret millionaire and you haven't told your husband yet?
Oh, that would be such a good thing.
Actually, we know a woman who actually had that happen to her. Her husband was a secret millionaire and he was on the Panama Papers. He passed away and the lawyer told her, well, you're going to be inheriting a lot of money. What do you mean a lot of money? He had millions and she took all the money, started a nonprofit for financial literacy of women in the south of Italy.
Oh, that's amazing. That's incredible. Yeah. So what is access? The thing is, when people are nurturing relationships with family businesses and with people of wealth, they always come from, it's almost like it's every thread that you read on social media that if somebody who's wealthy posts somewhere, there's somebody's going to come under there asking for money for this and asking for money for that. Conversations with people of wealth is to understand, do some research, understand what are the things that these people are really interested in. Where do their interests lie? And like anybody else, when you have interests, you're going to follow groups in that space. You're going to have conversations in that space, and you're going to engage in that space. And like you said, it's the secrecy of it, because you'd be tired of people consistently asking you for money. Everybody's got a great idea. Everybody's got a great project, and everybody wants you to listen to them. I mean, like, if we all have 24 hours in the day, and if you are a billionaire and a millionaire, you need a whole lot more than that, because the number of asks that are going to come your way are going to be a whole lot of asks, because everybody thinks they have the next big idea, which, you know what? A lot of these projects could be the next big idea. They could be the next big thing that changes. But also, when you're asking somebody for something as personal as money, they've worked for this money, they've earned this money in some way. And when they want to invest it, they want to invest it in something that aligns with them in some way. So it has to be aligned with their profit goals. It has to be aligned with their investment goals. It has to be aligned with their philanthropy goals. It has to be aligned with something. So join the groups that speak to this. So it's the same thing as when you join TBLI. Don't just join it because you want to. Maybe there's a billionaire sitting there who's going to listen and love your latest projects, or they're going to click on a link and read about it. It's not going to happen. It's very rarely does it happen, and I'm sure, Robert, you can attest to that. 25 years in, you can attest to that. But when you join conversations and contribute to them, and you contribute meaningfully, not contribute saying, "Oh, you know what? I've got a great chocolate story right here," or "We're doing this amazing thing." Speak to what people resonate with. When you connect with somebody, be authentic. They must feel the passion for what you're doing enough to want to ask you, "Okay, can you tell me more about this? And how does it work? And what are you doing in this space?" It's similar to the way we met. We met on LinkedIn. We had a conversation. You saw I was passionate about the work that I was doing, and you're like, "You know what?" And also you were passionate about the work you're doing. And we connected because we had a passion for similar things. And we started a conversation going, and we started collaborating. And that is the same with anyone across the globe. And especially more so with people with money. They're used to people coming at them all the time with good investments, good ideas, and everything in between. Do some research on the people. Do some research even in just the space you're in. You have an investment in this space. Which people with monies or capital funds or whatever have got interest in that space? And what other projects have they invested in? What other interests? So it could be the same as with African family businesses. To approach them, if they have an interest in education, they must have a story in education. They probably found it hard to go to school, went to a rural school, really worked hard to get up to where they are. And they feel like they want to give somebody who comes from their rural home the same opportunity that they got, or some child who couldn't afford school fees like they were, an opportunity to go to school. If you come at them with an opportunity to partner up in a school that is an ESG that is going to give opportunity to more children, it's something they're going to listen to, or they're going to follow you for a while and watch what you're doing. Are you providing the relevant content? Are you providing the relevant information? Or are you just saying, "Oh, come and invest with us. We'll send you a slide deck of information, and then we'll give you the numbers." There are people, yes, who relate to numbers, but I can tell you without a doubt, anyone with money has made the numbers. If they're going to invest in something, it's going to make sense to them. It's going to reach out to them in some way. And especially if it's ESG, it has to reach out to their fundamental values and their fundamental vision, and something that they really align with. And the best way to find them is allow them to find you, because you're doing something that's impactful within itself.
No, I totally agree with what you're saying, because I remember my wife had done this hotel school in Bhutan, and we were introduced to a Thai Indian gentleman. He never asked for the financials.
Mm-hmm.
He had continuously supported the hotel school. He wasn't interested in the financials. He was interested in the impact and the story and the ideas and the passion. So I agree with you at that, because everybody spends so much time trying to make the perfect deck. Yeah, okay, if you're raising $500 million for an on-land fish farm, I get it. You need all that documentation. but often people want to see a click. Does this person inspire me? Are they bringing something, in my life that I don't know about? Do I trust them? That issue of authenticity. Are people who are not African family offices, but family offices in Europe or North America or Asia, are they able to join your organization?
So, funny enough, we've had quite a number of people who've asked that. And what we do, we are trying to look at is facilitating to have non-African family business members and see how we can grow that collective of non-African family business members, because we feel that the information that we're giving, if it's necessary, if it's something that families feel that they can benefit from, individuals that are in that space of family businesses feel they can benefit from, we're most certainly willing to welcome them to these conversations. We're most certainly willing to welcome them to join as a chapter, and then have them link up with families on the continent and have conversations, because as much as we are different and we live in different spaces across the world, there is so much similarities in all of us. So anyone who'd be interested in that is welcome to inbox us and connect with us, and then we can see how best to place them and how best to connect them, because we're always looking for collaborations or ways of having conversations that are inclusive, especially for family businesses and family offices.
What can this audience, which is rather diverse, I mean, placement agents, fund managers, World Bank, IFC, family offices, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, what can they do to help you? What is your
I think
ask for the audience?
I think my ask for the audience is to engage AFF. As a nonprofit, as an organization, one of the things we're trying to do is create awareness, especially in African family businesses, of the different resources available to them, of the different issues that they face, the different ways they can be impactful, and the different ways that they are critical in the building of the ecosystem of what is going to be one of probably the biggest economies in the world, which is coming from the African continent itself. And so we're always looking for collaborations, to have conversations, collaborations to engage our membership, and collaborations to offer value. We prioritize value over all things, because when you give value, it's something that's eternal. It's something that can always be repeated over and over again. It's having conversations like this and collaborating with even TBLI, that we get African family businesses to be more aware of what is happening out there in terms of ESG investments. And hopefully we're going to have a TBLI conference going on in partnership with AFF soon. But it's having all these connections, all these conversations, adding value, that at some point we'll see that value manifesting into more than just value addition, but into traction, into happening, into change, and into real investment and real impact.
Okay. We're coming toward the end. What I normally do, apart from thanking everyone, is I try to make a group selfie of everyone here. So I will start that process so that people know what to do. I take a photo of myself, and then if each of you in the audience, if you're still there, just join and make a photo of yourself, and then it'll make a collage of all of the people who took a photo of themselves, and then I will send that to you. Some technical information: none of you have to connect on LinkedIn. This is a private LinkedIn system that all you need to do is on your phone or on your desktop, go into the chat area, and you can send messages to anyone, directly or indirectly to the whole group, to individuals. So download the app, go into the group chat, and you can connect with everyone in here. I have quite a few people that I need to thank who worked on this. So I want to thank our entire production crew for making this webinar possible. I particularly want to thank you, Tsitsi, for taking the time and sharing our insight. We will now have a virtual cocktail party networking system, and you will be connected every 5 minutes with one other person in the room. So just exit the room, and after you take a photo of yourself, and then enter that at exactly at 4 o'clock. So I want to thank Sam, our producer, crypto genius, and ramen critic, Ricky, my absolute better half with no filter, Xi Jinping, head of transparency and integrity, Boris Johnson, our hairstylist, Alexander Lukashenko, voting ethics monitor, Jeff Bezos, our human resource and full text compliance leader, Ted Cruz, our sedition expert and humility mentor, Yoweri Museveni, director of fair elections monitoring, Lauren Boebert, our in-house deep thinker and pacifist of the year, and Elon Musk, our humility coach. Thank you all very, very much for this great event. And please connect with each other through the chat, and you can reach out. And if you follow each other, you can also make free phone calls to each other. So thank you again. I'm going to stop the group fee, and then I'll send that to everyone. The replay of this interview will be available probably in an hour or two. We'll send you notification of that. And nearly everyone who started stayed. That's quite unusual. Usually people kind of go in and out and things like that. So thank you again, Tsitsi. And please join our virtual cocktail party, which will be starting in about 2 minutes or 1 minute. Stay well.
Definitely, I'll be there. Thanks,
All right.
Robert.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, let's stop this.